This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, Agat Tavach, everyone. Shalom Aleichem. We're going to speak about a very interesting sugya today. Not a long sugya. I only have a short amount of time, but I want to speak about the Gemara on Chaf Hei Amud Beis. The Gemara made a statement. The Gemara said on the bottom of Chaf Hei Amud Beis that Rebbi and Rebbi, one brought up a son based on the testimony of his father to Kahuna, and one brought up a brother based on the testimony of his brother for Leviah. So the Gemara said it must be Rebbi was the one who brought up a son based on his father to Kahuna, because we learned in a Brisa, if somebody comes and says, B'ni zev v'koyin hu, this is my son and he's a koyin, he's neman to imachel him b'tshuma, he's not neman to marry him off. This is the opinion of Rebbi. So Rabbi Chia said, if you're going to believe him to feed him truma, believe him to marry him off. You're not going to believe him to marry off, don't believe him to allow him to eat truma. So Rebbi said, the reason I believe him to be able to eat truma is because it's biyadai lahachilai truma. The reason why the father could testify, my son is a kayin, please give him your truma, because the father could give him the truma himself. The father could give truma to his kid, so he's believed to say and testify he's a kayin regarding the son accepting truma. But he's not believed to marry him off to yimucheses because it's not biyadai to do so. That's the Gemara. The svara of biyadai, it would seem like, is a svara of like a migu, some type of migu. Believe me that he's a kohen to feed him truma, because I could feed him truma. Okay, that's the Gemara. Again, one more time, just if you just came, the Gemara said that Rebbi holds that a father is believed about his son to feed him truma because it's biyadai to feed him truma, but he's not believed to marry him off to miyucheses because that's not biyadai. So I want to learn with you the Tosfos, Divrei Hamaschel, Harei she'amar b'ni zev v'koyin hu. If you have a Gemara, it's Chaf Hei Amud Beis, or you can look on the screen. So the father says, b'ni zeh, this is my son, v'koyin hu. That means it's mashma, the father is saying two things. The father is saying, number one, this person is my son, and number two, he's a kohen. That we don't have outside knowledge that this kid is the son of the father. Says Gemara, midanakat b'ni zev v'koyin, from the fact that it says this is my son and he's a kohen, mashma she'ino yadu alanu imhu b'nai. That implies we don't know if it's the son or not. V'hu ba laha'ed shehu b'nai. And he's coming to testify that it's my son and it's a kohen. That he's not a ben grusha, because if it's already known that it's his son, it should say, my son is a kohen. But the fact that he says, that means he's testifying about two things. He's saying, first of all, this is my son, and he's a kohen. Meaning, in other words, what does it mean? If he's saying that it's his son, then obviously he's a kohen because the person testifying is a kohen. What he's saying is he's not a ben grusha. Okay, so Tosfos is established. We don't have outside knowledge that the son is a kohen. We only know he's a kohen based on the father's say so. The father is testifying on two things: that this is his son, and that he's a kohen. V'tema. The father should be believed according to everyone, to allow him to eat truma, and to allow him to marry miyucheses. Why? Believe me, this is my son and he's a kohen, because I could have said that he's not my son, and said he's allowed, and then testify about him that he's a kosher eid echad nema b'yisurin. So Tosfos wants to know, why don't we say migu? Believe me that the kid is a kohen, because I didn't have to tell you he's my son. Why? Right? So that's the kasha. What about migu? V'yesh loymar, Tosfos says, the afagav de'ika migu, even though there is a migu, loy meheman, he's still not believed. He's not believed to say that the son is allowed to marry to Miucheses, with a migu that he could have said that it's not his son, because at the end of the day, he's saying it's his son, and he's a karov. And since he's a karov, he's not believed. Why? Loy mehemen dila dvarav karavu, because based on his own testimony, he's a karov. Kidamrina b'hachoyleitz. Like we say in Yevamis, lidvarecha kusiata. Like in the case in Hachoyleitz, where we say, according to you, you're a goy, ve'ein edus l'kusi. Ve'ein adam neman l'fsos b'nayin, a person is not believed to passel a son. So let's try to look up this Gemara that Tosfos is quoting, where Tosfos seems to be proving that you're not believed to say someone's kasher with a migu that you could have said they're not your son, because at the end of the day, you're saying that they're your son. So you're a puzzle, you're a karov to them, so you're not believed. You're not believed to testify that they're kasher to marry Miucheses, because you just said that you're related, even though you have a migu that you could have said that you're not related. Similar to the following Gemara. It's a Gemara in Yevamis Daf Mem Zayin. Let's look at this Gemara. Somebody came before Rabbi Yehuda. I converted in the Bezdin. It's called the Bezdin of myself. Meaning I converted, but it's not a good conversion. Amarle Rabbi Yehuda, yesh lecha edim? Do you have edim that you converted yourself? Amarle lav. Yesh lecha banim? Do you have sons? Amarle hein. Amarle nemanata lifsos atzmcha v'yata neman lifsos banecha. You're believed to passel yourself. You're not believed to passel your children. Frak the Gemara. Rashi there says that since his children were muchzik b'kashrus, he's not neman to passel them. Frak the Gemara. Umi amar Yehuda abanim loy mehemen v'atanya yakir yakirenu la'acherim mikan amar Yehuda neman adam loymer zeh b'ni b'char ukeshem sheneman loymer zeh b'ni b'char kach neman loymer b'ni zeh ben grusha who b'chacham loymer eno neman. Basically, we have Exeris HaKosav. It's called Yakir. Yakir says that a father has special believability regarding the status of a son. So how could Rabbi Yehuda say you're Neman for yourself, but you're not Neman to say that your son's conversion wasn't good? What about Yakir? Why don't we use Yakir? Says the Gemara. Let me get this on the screen. Amar of Nachman bar Yitzchak, Kachi Kamarlei, Lidvarecha. It got caught up. Oived koichavim ata. According to you, you're a guy. Ve'ein edus oived koichavim. And there's no edus to a guy. Meaning, really, there should be a believability through the koich of Yakir. The only thing is, you're saying that you yourself are a guy. If you're saying you yourself are a guy, you lose the believability of Yakir. So too, Tosfos in Ksubis wants to say, Tosfos' kasha is, why can't you be believed to say that your son could marry Miucheses? Because you could have said that he's not your son, Migu. Tosfos seems to be saying, well, you're saying that he's your son. Lidvarecha, you're not believed you're not believed about him. The same way, if you say you're a guy, you're not believed to say your son's gerus is no good, because you yourself are claiming that you're puzzle, and therefore you lose believability of Yakir and Yevamis Daf Mem Zayin. So too, if you say that he's my son, but believe me, he's Miucheses, because I could have said he's not my son, you're not believed, because Lidvarecha, he's your son. The same way, being a guy destroys Yakir, being a relative destroys Migu. That's what Tosfos is saying. You hear it? Listen very carefully. Tosfos bring a raya from Yevamis, that just like saying that you're a guy destroys the believability of Yakir, so too, saying that you're a relative destroys the believability of Migu. Now, Tosfos continues. V'afagav the Rebbi ka'amar b'samach, even though Rebbi continues and he says, Ani ma'amina l'achila b'tshuma Sharei biyadei la'achila b'tshuma. That I believe him to feed him truma because it's biyadei la'achila b'tshuma. We see afagav alma, afagav the karevhu. Why am I believed? But I'm a relative, so why could I say that he could eat truma? Lidvarav, neman b'migu, you're believed with the biyadei. Says Tosfos Chasam v'adem hem ninan lei mishum de'islei migu. There you have a migu afilu yadinan shu benai. Even if we would know that it's your son, listen carefully, there, even if we would have independent knowledge that it's your son, you still have a migu. Believe me that he's a kosher because I could feed him truma. Aval hai migu. But this migu, if we would know that it's your son, then you don't have a migu. The migu of being machshir you liyuchsin is, believe me, he's milcheses. I could have said he's not my son. That migu is destroyed if we know that he is your son. So we say you can't use the migu because according to what you're saying, you're not believed. You're saying you're related. Masha'in kain, regarding achilas truma, even if we know he's your son, the migu still works, even if we know he's your son, because it's biyadei lahachilai truma. Now this is a very fine split. Why am I neman to feed him truma? Because I have a migu, I could feed him truma. So we see, what do you mean? But I'm saying that I'm a puzzle. No, but my migu still exists even if we know that he's my son. Masha'in kain, the migu to allow him to marry miyucheses only exists if we don't know he's your son, so you could have said he's not your son. But once you're saying he is your son, you remove your believability because you're not Nemon anymore because you're saying he's your son. This split is not easy to hear. I don't want to focus on this part of Tosfos. I want to focus on the earlier part of Tosfos, the Raya from Yavamis. Okay, we have to think very clearly for a moment. Tosfos's kasha, Tosfos's answer is, just like in Yavamis, you're not believed to say your son's conversion is no good. Even though normally a father is believed about his son through the koyach of Eiger of Yakir. The reason you're not believed is because you say you're a guy and therefore you're disqualifying yourself. So too in this case, you're saying that he's your son, so even though you have the believability of migu, you're passing yourself saying that he's related to you. Just like saying you're a guy destroys Yakir, saying he's your son destroys amigu. So Rabbi Akiva Eiger comes along and he asks the strongest kasha you ever heard in your life. What in the world is in comparison to Yavamis? In Yavamis, the father wants to be believed through the koyach of Yakir. Yakir is edus. Yakir is, a father is allowed to say testimony about his son. That is destroyed if you say that you're a guy. If I say I'm a guy, you lose the Yakir. Because Yakir is a koyach of edus. And how do you have a koyach of edus if you're disqualified for edus if you say you're a guy? But migu is not edus. The reason the father wants to be believed over here is, believe me that my son could marry Miyuchases because Anan Sadi, I'm telling the truth. Of course I have a raya, I'm telling the truth. The proof is, if I wanted to lie, I could have said he's not my son. So what do you want to tell me? What, I'm puzzled for edus because I'm saying he's my son? I don't want to be believed as an aid. I want to be believed through migu. Migu is not edus. Migu is a proof I'm telling the truth. So Rabbi Akiva Eiger, here look at this Rabbi Akiva Eiger. A day that you learn Rabbi Akiva Eiger is automatically a good day. He quotes Tosfos, "With Tosfos tertzu the mishum hachi loy mehemen b'migu the ledvar of karavu kamay damina b'hachoyleitz ledvarecha nachriyata ve'in edus la'akam ube'anyi eini mevin." In my impoverished state, I don't get it. Dahasa midin edus banu lahaminai. In Yavamis, we want to believe him through a koyach of edus. Midin Yakir, through the power of the Xerxes of Yakir. Shaper amrinan ledvarecha. So we say you can use edus. According to you, you're a guy. Aval hacha, but here, dimitam migu banalamina. We want to believe him as a migu. We want to believe him through migu. Ma bekachtu karev. Who cares if you're related? Atu karev ein enema b'migu? Is a relative, does kirva passel someone if they want to be believed through migu? Migu is not eidos. Migu is just indication. Migu is just evidence that I'm telling the truth. So why? It's very nice I'm related, but I have a proof that I'm telling the truth. Because I could have said he's not my son. That's Rabbi Eiger's bamba of Akasha. Okay, and it says Rabbi Eiger, "V'tzarach li ion gadol." This is Eiger basically says I have no answer to this. The raya from Hachoyleitz is not really comparable. Yakir being spoiled by being a guy is not. How does that show that amigo should be spoiled just because you're related? Now everybody knows that in the Olam HaYeshivos, there's a famous chakira of Rabbi Chanan Wasserman. How does migu work? Is it anan sadi or is it kayach hatayna? Means like this: is migu believe me what I'm saying and give credibility to what I'm saying because I wanted to lie, I could have said a bigger lie, so a better lie. The fact I didn't, that shows what I'm saying is the truth. Or is somehow migu kayach hatayna? Rabbi Chanan famously learns an idea of migu is kayach hatayna. Kayach hatayna means not because I could have claimed something that proves I'm telling the truth, not because I could have said a better claim that proves I'm telling the truth, but because I could have said a better claim, will consider it as if I get the power of that other claim I could have made. So Rabbi Chanan wants to say that this Tosfos proves that migu does not work in the traditional classic way you would have expected. The operation of migu is not, believe me when I say A, because I could have said B. B is much better, so it must be when I say A is the truth, but rather, because I could have said B, I am accredited as if I did say B. But Rabbi Chanan says that's not shayach over here. Yes, I could have fooled the Beis Din and said he's not my son, and they would have accepted the eidos, but at the end of the day, he is your son, and you're related to him. So therefore, you can't testify about him. And Tosfos is somehow proving this in the Gemara in Yevamos. You know why we don't say migu? Let's see if we could figure out what Rabbi Chanan is saying. Do you have a Kovetz Shiurim? I didn't put this page on. You have a Kovetz Shiurim? Should I send it to you? Quickly? Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Could you wait a minute? Can I send it to you? Okay. I'm going to pause this.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.